Hi everyone, today we're going to make another northern Chinese staple. It translates to oil on noodles. As the name suggests, it's very simple. It's basically noodles with fragrant oil on top.
And it's got a very special place in my heart because it's actually from my hometown of Xian, which is famous for the Terracotta warriors and a long line of tyrants in Chinese history. These days it's famous for its food, noodles, which put it on the map. Here's actually a clip of my mum making it the authentic way, which I can't do. And it's also very famous for its bell tower, which these days looks like a building that's on LSD.
So let's have a look at the ingredients. So first you need a bag of noodles. We've just bought this from the supermarket, but you can really use anything. You can use spaghetti. As long as a noodle has a bit of texture, you know, it has to be a tougher noodle. And so to get started, we'll look at some of the other things we need. We're using sweet potato sprouts, but you can use any greens you like.
And what you also want, you've probably guessed it by now, is the usual heroes of coriander, shallots, soy, pepper. You do need chili powder here though. Chili flakes don't quite do it. You need some chili powder. Get it from Woolies. Garlic is optional. I haven't used it here because I haven't got it on hand, but you can definitely add some garlic. We should probably chop up these greens because you don't want them in big pieces. Sweet potato sprouts are great because they chop nicely and they boil nicely. Look, the thing is, these greens don't go until the end. Now, noodles. So, portion control, you only need about this much for each person. It's a good way to portion control, basically the size of your fingers. And so you grab a handful like that, or a few if you're cooking for multiple people, and you throw it into a pot of boiling water. Sorry, I should have said the water needs to be boiling in the background. Never put noodles into water that's not boiling because they will stick together. They might even stick after it's boiled. So get that in there, make sure the fire is on absolute max, or if you're using electric, absolute max. Now, let's clear these greens, and whilst that's cooking, it'll take about 10 minutes, maybe 15, let's prepare the rest. So you've always got the humble spring onion and some coriander. I love both of these. I grow them in my backyard, and I'd suggest you do the same. We can do another video on growing your own condiments. But with these things, what you want to do is you want to use the back of the spring onion first. Always start from the back. And you want to chop the entire thing. Dice it as thinly as possible, because the thinner you get these, the better, the more fragrant they will be. It's important to note for this dish, we're not going to fry these. It's all oil on top. So the thinner you get them, the more likely the hot oil is going to really soak in and get it really fragrant, which will then drizzle over. Now that that's done, let's clear up the coriander. Similar thing, you want to dice it as small as possible. Now, you could technically use a little food process for this process, but hey, I just really like cleavers generally, so why use a machine? I'll use a food processor in another video. But so once that's ready, you want to just get that ready and set that aside, and let it air out a little bit. It works out quite well. Check on your noodles, they should be boiling, and just make sure once in a while, what you want to do is you want to give it a good shake, just to make sure it hasn't stuck to the bottom. It does happen. The Italian friends will recognize the similarities. So, 20 minutes later, and while you're waiting for the noodles to cook, we can make some condiments. My favorite's actually just a fried egg, but you can use mince and all that too. Now for this egg, it doesn't really matter if you fry it sunny on top or if you beat it and scramble it and make it into an omelette, because you actually end up dicing it up anyway and putting it in, so it really doesn't matter. But let's just beat it anyway. Why not? Why make things simple and quick when you can make them long and complex? Bit like how lawyers do stuff. Whilst that's cooking, you want to check on the noodles. It's probably been about 15 minutes now, so let's give it a try. You want it to be fairly, I think, al dente, they call it. So those noodles are now ready. So whilst the egg is still cooking and solidifying, what we will do is we'll get those noodles and we'll strain them. So now you just want to keep them hot, but you want to get the water out because the water will ruin the flavor. Now, this is where the flavoring process starts. You want to get a nice big bowl. Big bowls are important because they give you a good base to work from. And what you want to do is you want to put in some soy. Soy as a base, I never really count portions, just enough at the bottom so that you can't see the bottom. And then you want to pour the noodles in, so you can see that the soy should basically provide a little base for those noodles. And then what you want to do is you want to take all that seasoning you've prepared already. It should be nice and aired out now. And you want to keep it all in one corner. It's very, very important that you keep it all in one corner and you want to layer it on top of each other. And then on top of that, you want to put the chili powder on top. This is where the chili powder is important. It's probably better than chili flakes. I like chili, so why don't we just put on some flakes anyway? But really, you need chili powder. Get some from Woolies or a Chinese supermarket. So that's now ready, and now the egg's ready too. So because you're mixing this up, what you want to do is you want to chop up the egg so that it's diced. Everything tastes nicer in this when it's diced because you're really gonna put it through a big mixing process, which is quite nice. So let's just chop that egg up, and then you want to put the egg in. And this is now where we get the vegetables ready. Now, in theory, you could actually prepare the vegetables in the pot as well. Just throw it in the last 5 minutes. But I like to do them separately. So very easy, boiling water, vegetables go right in. You can use whatever greens you want, really. The only thing that I don't like is celery. You want something that's quite leafy because the leaves will absorb all the juices. So turn that on high heat. It should only take about 3 to 5 minutes. You just want the water to be boiling. There you go, just like that. So that's done. Now that the vegetables are done, you don't want them to be too soggy and fall apart. You want some texture to those vegetables. So give the vegetables a good strain. Get rid of the water, but you don't have to get rid of the heat. So the vegetables then find its happy place on top of the noodles. You want to heat some oil. Use an oil with a high smoking point. So usually canola or peanut or rice. That's all fine. Don't use olive oil because it starts to smoke at a very low temperature. This thing only tastes good if the oil is nice and hot. So now you can see that the oil is actually smoking. You want to almost be able to set off the smoke alarm, but don't do that. But you have to almost be prepared to do it. And then what you want to do is you want to pour the oil directly over the chili and the shallots part, so you can see all the smoke coming out of it. Now, this is now ready, so what you want to do is you want to give it a nice good mix, and what the oil does is that it actually creates a paste of the chili, which then mixes really, really well with the soy sauce at the bottom. So give it a nice good mix. So now you want to do this quickly so the oil doesn't actually get too cold. And now we can flavor it using a bit of pepper and a bit of salt. Now, pepper is very important, as you've probably guessed. So you want to get some pepper in there. Salt's actually optional because of the soy sauce base, which is quite salty, but I like my food quite strong. Now, one thing that's really important, if you're cooking for multiple people, please use one bowl for each person. You don't want to have one big bowl because the oil won't never make it to the bottom. You'll be stuck with very mashy noodles. This is the secret to it. It's that hot oil on top, which sears the flavoring, and then it gets stirred in.
Oh wow, that's great.
So, in summary, use a wheat-based noodle. It could also be spaghetti. Just don't use rice-based noodles. But anything that's wheat-based and a little bit thicker is probably better because it's got a bit more body for the boiling and the mixing. You want to chop the shallots and coriander as thin as possible because there's no pan frying process. You want them to be so thin that the oil cooks it when it goes over. Now, it's not shown in this video, but you could also put some garlic into the mix. Surprise, surprise. There have been vampires lurking around in northern China. They're obsessed with garlic. Now, when you're boiling the actual noodles, you want to make sure the water is actually boiling, absolutely bubbling and boiling before putting anything in. Otherwise, it just gets all very sticky. Otherwise, it gets all very sticky. You want to cook the greens at the end or separately to avoid overcooking. And finally, chili powder, the shallots and the coriander, and maybe some garlic if you want. The holy trinity. It has to go into one corner on top of the layers, a bit like a sacred corner. And you pour the hot oil over the sacred corner before giving it a good mix.